That all it takes is a couple of hiccups or bad decisions, and suddenly you can find yourself in an incredible credit jackpot. Do what I did. Call Bill Lewis at Credit Restoration Consultants at 954-581-5050. That's 954-581-5050. Put an end to the harassing calls. Don't let your credit score drop. That's what Bill did for me. It was a disaster, and over a period of time, he gradually got my credit restored, and today, I bought a car, I have credit cards, I own a house. He's the guy that made that possible. Again, Bill Lewis at Credit Restoration Consultants, 954-581-5050, 954-581-5050, or go online to talkaboutcredit.com. Tell them you heard about it from Greg Vidal. And remember, if your credit score is dropping and you have harassing phone calls, this is the man that could put an end to it all. Bill Lewis at Credit Restoration Consultants.
Sweatshop labor in a foreign factory and gets packed on a vessel and shipped over the sea. It's loaded onto trailers and it's spread across the map.
Big Box Mart is the place I go to buy all of my crap.
Oh, Big Box Mart,
what do you have for me? 'Cause our shopping carts are empty and we're on a shopping spree. I come to the Big Box Mart 'cause I do have lots of needs, and they sell crap the cheapest with their discounts guaranteed. When I'm walking through the aisles, it's like I'm hypnotized. With a wallet full of credit cards, I never leave deprived.
oh, Big Box Mart,
Thank you for serving me, 'cause my house is full of crap now and it used to be empty.
The next day at the factory, the news was very grim.
My job was being outsourced to the slums of East Beijing.
Management was streamlining the company's org chart.
We gotta make crap cheap enough
To sell to Big Box Mart. Oh, Big Box Mart,
Look what you've done to me.
he's got to start all over at the age of 53.
I still go to Big Box Mart, yes, I'm there most all the time. These days you'll likely find me sweeping aisle number 9. My dreams of a retirement have gone up in a blaze, and I'll be scrubbing toilets till they stick me in the grave.
Oh, Big Box Mart,
What have you sold to me? We used to be your customers, now we're your employees.
oh, Big Box Mart,
My paycheck reminds me your everyday low prices have a price. They are rent-free. Paper or plastic?
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
This is the Credit Report with Bill Lewis, a daily forum for business and financial news, politics, economic trends, and cutting-edge issues. The Credit Report is brought to you by Credit Restoration Consultants, the leading credit restoration firm in South Florida. Schedule your free consultation today. For details, go to talkaboutcredit.com. Join the discussion live. Call toll-free 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470. Now, here's Bill Lewis.
Greg Cooper there, starting to sound a little repetitive there on the 888-565-1470. But yes, your opinion does matter. This is Bill Lewis with the Credit Report, a daily forum for business, financial news, politics, economic trends, as well as cutting-edge issues. And backed by popular demand is foreclosure defense attorney Lori Barkus. Good morning, Lori. Long time no see.
Good morning, Bill. It's good to see you again.
Hey, so far so good. Actually, the last time I seen you was actually not too long ago. You're telling me, like, wow, the foreclosure business is up. And I'm like, Lori, how come you're not sending your credit restoration company leads? And you're like, well, I am, Bill, but, aren't you sending those leads back? And I'm like, well, not every one of my clients is in foreclosure, just a few here and there. But you've been on the radio before. Obviously, we've talked about your prior practices, divorce. We've talked about wills and estates and trusts. Obviously, we've talked about foreclosures. And back today, we're going to strictly talk about foreclosure. So let's start with yourself. Introduce yourself for those 13 or 14 listeners out there.
Well, thank you, Bill. As you said, I'm Lori Barkus.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Bill. I'm an attorney here in Weston, I've been practicing for 11 years now. And
why do you suppose, Lori, they call it practice? I mean, after all, it's sort of like a doctor, practicing medicine. Do you think they'll ever get it right?
Well, I think we aspire to do that, Bill, and I guess it's not very confidence-inspiring to your listeners, but it's also humbling in one respect.
It's not really that humbling. Actually, you're on the show. We don't allow people on the show that don't offer some sort of compliment to it. So if we didn't like you, you wouldn't be here. And if you weren't here, we wouldn't be telling those thousands of listeners that follow the Steve Kane show every morning. Because, Steve and Brian, they got the listeners, especially those people out there in Cemetery Lakes Village. But all those individuals out there that just continue to listen to my show immediately following those each and every morning at 9 a.m. here on 1470. But, in dealing with attorneys, we don't allow many attorneys on this show. So if you're not reputable, if you're not honest, if you're not credible, you're not somebody we haven't been dealing with for several years, we're not going to have you. We're not going to welcome you. We're not going to offer to have those clients call you. Am I making any sense?
Well, you certainly are, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be here, Bill.
Well, yeah, because actually you've kind of shed some of that shyness in the past, because the last couple of times you've been on the show, you were really nervous. All right, let's start over. You've been practicing now for over 11 years.
That's true, Bill. Yes, I have. And I've done a great deal of litigation during that practice. I have a family law practice, but what I'm here to talk about today is what's on a lot of people's minds, and that's foreclosure.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, obviously, foreclosures, they're up. And, obviously, the July foreclosure filings here in Broward County are up much more over last year. According to Sun Sentinel as well as Realty Track, and most of you out there are familiar with Realty Track of Irvine, California, Broward County has the state's third highest foreclosure rate, and it's consistently among the top 5. Last month alone, 8,510 homes were in some sort of foreclosure. And that's up 44% over July 2008. Any thoughts, Lori? Do we see any end in sight here?
Unfortunately, we don't, Bill, because one of the things that's happening is, although a lot of what have been called the subprime mortgages have gone through foreclosure, we've got a lot of people here in Broward County who have fallen on unfortunate circumstances. They have lost their jobs, they have fallen behind on payments, and we're expecting a new wave of foreclosures to start.
Well, the thought process, or the rumor mill actually has it, is that the banks and the financial institutions are actually saving up their cases to file their foreclosures all at once to be able to push the values of these homes back up. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I've heard about that, Bill.
But it seems more rumor than fact. Why hold on to a home? Banks are not in the real estate business. They're in the money lending business.
Well, that's certainly true. However, if the banks are doing this, and I certainly can't confirm it or deny it, but if they are in fact holding on to these homes, then that would drive up prices in the existing market, because every time there's a flood of foreclosures, prices go down. So the people who believe that the banks are in fact doing this say that they're doing it to basically increase the value of their existing equity in the homes that they already own.
Well, Lori, on the flip side of the coin here, you have individuals that talk about, okay, the trying economic times. Let's put aside foreclosure for a second. You have a trying economic time. You have unemployment at epidemic rates. Obviously, we just recently hit double digits here in the state of Florida. And they talk about individuals that are losing their job, become underemployed. Not just unemployed, but underemployed. They lose hours, they lose benefits, they lose bonuses. And these individuals that have once had stellar credit histories in their past, people that pay their bills on time, overtime, every time. Heck, now all of a sudden they can't pay. And universal default clauses between credit cards and other accounts go up. All of a sudden you can't pay your mortgage.
Well, Bill, that's certainly true. There are, in addition to our over 10% unemployment, there's a lot of part-time. There are people who are now working part-time that want to be working full-time, and there's people whose unemployment has expired, and they are facing severe problems right now. But these are people we really think that we can help, because, as you said, they do have stellar credit, they have excellent payment histories, and they certainly will be able to pay their mortgages and pay their obligations. They just currently are not able to do so. All
right, now, going back to you, talking about you, foreclosure defense, you've been doing it now for a while. Obviously, you've been an attorney for over 11 years. You've litigated cases not only in state court and federal court. You're admitted to practice in Florida, Georgia, as well as the District of Columbia, the unknown, unpopulous 51st state there. Do you think they'll ever become a state?
I don't think so.
Have no clue on that, huh? Well, I actually have no clue. You don't think so, but I have no clue. It's like Puerto Rico. It's like, wait a second, why become a state? You can get all the benefits without it. All right, besides that, you're also admitted in the Southern District of Court, the Middle District of Court, the 11th Judicial Circuit Court of Appeals. Hey, wait a second, what about Northern?
When I was doing federal court work, we didn't do anything in the northern portion of Florida, so I was never admitted up there.
Two-hour test, get it over with, be admitted. Then you can say every court in Florida.
Every federal court, that's correct, Bill.
All right. During that time, though, you've handled literally hundreds of different type of cases, whether they be foreclosures or obviously you mentioned family, law matters and this stuff, and you've branched out throughout the years into foreclosure defense now that this is becoming a popular topic. Why are you doing it?
Well, one of the main reasons I'm doing it, Bill, is because I really want to help people who I feel have been treated unfairly. And the more and more I've learned about the situation we're in, I've realized that people may not have had the information they needed at the outset, or perhaps they did and now they've fallen victim to the current economy through no fault of their own. And there are a lot of abuses that are going on out there. And
what type of abuses? I go out and apply for a mortgage. I get the home, and I have one of these great rates. The adjustable rate mortgage. I live in $1 million home for a couple grand a month, and all of a sudden, poof! I got to pay the piper. Why is it abuse? Am I abusing the company? Are they abusing me? What's the deal?
Well, it depends what happened, Bill, because if nobody told you what was going to happen with your adjustable rate, which is the situation in a lot of cases.
But I signed 600 pages of documents. It was in there somewhere.
It may or may not have been in there somewhere, and until somebody reviews those documents, we really wouldn't know that for sure. But perhaps it was in there in some small 8-point font, and you were told to just keep signing because it didn't matter because this is your payment. And like a lot of people who have found themselves in this situation, maybe you didn't know what you were signing.
All right, so are those 600 pages of documents? You talk about the 8-point fonts, so different than the 10 or 12-point fonts, those big, letters that say this is my payment, this is what I'm paying each and every month. And I guess, does that mean there has to be some sort of uniformity between the fonts and the thoughts, or I got to make sure that every line that says initial here is initial?
Well, there are certain things that are done to make it less obvious to people as to what they're signing, and when there's a document that deliberately reduces the font of something to see if somebody may or may not catch it, that would be suspect to me. There's also disclosures that needed to be there in those 600 or so pages that sometimes weren't there.
All right, we'll talk about that obviously after the break, because I want to go through the mortgage process with you, what it takes from the time that you're actually served by the sheriff. An individual comes to the door, whether they be a process server or the sheriff, and they hand you paperwork and say, look, now you're in jeopardy. And of course, most individuals know this already because they're 60, 90, 120 days delinquent. The mortgage company defaults them, you fail to pay, fail to modify the loan, and poof, all of a sudden the sheriff comes looking for you. So after the break, we're going to talk about what happens at the very beginning of the process and how you, Lori Barkus, can help and assist those individuals. Once again, your telephone number out in Weston, should somebody want to know more about you?
My number is 954-349-7988.
And of course, your website is www.foreclosuredefensebroward.com. My name is Bill Lewis here. The credit report, 888-565-1470, with questions, comments, complaints, or concerns. Once again, my guest, Lori Barkus, today, foreclosure defense attorney, if you have a question or concern. We'll be right back.
This is Jennifer Lewis for Pat Rossetti and Tom James of South Florida. If you haven't seen my husband Bill lately, wow. The reason? He just got outfitted with a brand new wardrobe from Tom James Fine Clothing. The Tom James Company is the world's largest manufacturer and retailer of custom clothing. They plan, coordinate, and maintain your wardrobe so that you're perfectly attired for any occasion. Business, casual, social, or formal. So if you need the perfect attire and you need the perfect touch of class, call Pat Rossetti at Tom James of South Florida. He's even giving you his personal cell phone number, 561-789-4357. That's 561-789-4357. Or go online to tomjames.com. And be sure to tell them that Jennifer Lewis sent you. Tom James, the best kept secret in elegance and refinement.
You own a business, but you spend too much time chasing your customers for payment. Your customers are slow to pay invoices. They avoid your calls. Uncollected judgments are piling up, and your current collection agency is no help. Tired of hearing the checks in the mail? Write down the phone number for McCabe Smith Reynolds & Associates, 800-699-DEBT. That's 800-699-DEBT. McCabe Smith Reynolds & Associates is a South Florida-based professional collections firm, and they can help you to collect the money that's owed to you. They work on a contingency basis, so if they don't collect, you pay absolutely nothing. Collections on bad checks, delinquent accounts, judgments, and all types of overdue receivables. They can even handle background checks, credit reporting to all 3 credit bureaus, and they provide worldwide attorney services. McCabe Smith & Reynolds will work just like a seamless extension of your own company, providing written and verbal verification of all collection accounts, timely status reports, and litigation support. Bottom line, McCabe Smith & Reynolds gets results. Get your cash flow going in the right direction. Go with the firm that Bill Lewis and Credit Restoration Consultants uses, McCabe Smith Reynolds & Associates. Offices conveniently located in Pompano Beach. Call 800-699-DEBT. That's 800-699-DEBT. Or go online to msrcollections.com. This is the Credit Report with Bill Lewis, where your opinion matters. Call us live on the air right now, toll free, 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470. Once again, here's Bill Lewis.
Yeah, I'm sitting here, Lori, during the break, and I'm kind of going over this article here from South Florida Sun Sentinel here, and they talk about the July foreclosure filings that soar in Broward County, but it seems like they've gone down a little bit in Palm Beach. Matter of fact, they talk about the 8,510 homeowners in Broward County or in some state of foreclosure, and that's up 44% over last year. But, in Broward County, Palm Beach County, the foreclosure filings dropped 24% from last year to 2,652. Do we have any idea why it's so high in Broward and why it's gone up so much, but the opposite in Palm Beach?
It's probably a function of the market, at least in part, Bill, and all the foreclosures that we've seen, the property values have dropped for a lot of people. And
I guess they're dropping faster in Broward. But, let's switch gears real quick. Why am I going to hire you? I mean, my company, my day job, Credit Restoration Consultants, in the past we referred you several clients concerning family law. I mean, we get clients here and there that beat the hell out of each other and they need to get a divorce, and we've sent them over to you and they've been very happy. We've sent over a couple of foreclosure cases in the past, and these individuals have been very happy. And, of course, then they come back for credit repair because they think sometimes you poof wave the magic wand. They live in the home 3 or 4 years for free, and all of a sudden they give the home back, but the credit goes away too, and that just doesn't happen. But everybody's been really very complimentive of you, but every time I get you on the radio, you freeze up on me. What's up? I mean, this is not your normal demeanor. Usually you're a very bubbly person. Are you just afraid that somebody's going to reach out and bite you through the headset?
Well, I don't know if that's what's going on, Bill. I
mean, you just seem, every time you come on the radio, though, you just seem nervous.
I'm not nervous.
I mean,
I'm enjoying our conversation here.
Well, that's the way you have to keep it, though, as a conversation, because some people, like I have a face for radio, and I could never, they say in the political world I couldn't get elected dog catcher, but I think I do a pretty good job on the radio. And after so many years of doing it, you go out to these different events, whether it be Steve Kane type events or the other hosts on the station, and they're like, "Oh, you're Bill Lewis. I listen to you all the time." And I'm saying to myself, "Frickin' loser." They got nothing else better to do, but listen to a radio show after 3 hours of Steve Kane in the morning. But every time I have you on, it just seems you just don't seem yourself. All right, let's forget that. I mean, because you don't really have an answer for that, do you? Not
really, but I would vote for you for dog catcher, Bill. You have my full support.
Oh, thank you. Can you write a check while you're here? Well, campaign contributions up to $500. All right, listen. Why am I going to hire you? I mean, I've already let those few people out there know that we've sent you some work concerning divorces and a couple cases in foreclosure. But, I'm being sued. The sheriff shows up at my door. Why bother? I'm already going to lose my home. Why do I have to put good money after bad?
Well, there's a few reasons for that, and that is an excellent question. One of the reasons why is because there are things you can do to defend this. And yes, you're right. If you owe money to the bank and you're in foreclosure, you are going to either have to come up with some way to pay them, or you will lose the house. But you can fix that situation. You might be able to modify your loan and stay in your home. You also, if you are prepared to walk away, and I know a lot of people are, you need to be aware that the bank can come after you later on. They can get a deficiency.
For what? I mean, I've already lost my home. What else can they take?
You've lost your home, but if your home is worth less than your mortgage, the bank can get a deficiency judgment against you. And
right, but they already got the foreclosure. They already got a default or a summary judgment, or.
But that's not the end of it, Bill. They have your home. They're going to sell your home. Hopefully they'll sell for a fair market value. Although
yeah, sure. I mean, it's like the repossessions. Oh, fair market value, $30,000 car sold for $4,000.
Well, that's one of the problems, Bill, that when people walk away, the bank sells, the bank then gets its deficiency judgment, and people don't know if the value was even fair. They don't know if the amounts calculated by the bank for what they owe for interest, for fees. is the correct amount, and all of a sudden 5 years later, maybe even 10 years later, when somebody has put this behind them and is starting to do well, the bank comes along and starts collecting on their judgment.
Well, let's talk about that, because I mean, judgments in the state of Florida, you get a deficiency judgment. In the past, a judgment could be good for 20 years. They would renew it at 7, they would renew it at 14, essentially it would die at 20. But now judgments in Florida are generally only good for 10, renewable at 5, and then, of course, expire at 10. What ends up happening? I mean, credit reporting-wise, it's there for 7 years. But as far as coming after me, okay, you took my home. I got the foreclosure. You got a deficiency judgment. I mean, hell, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other individuals that they get the same one. Are we saying after the market rebounds, individuals should be wary and leery of what's going to happen?
Well, I think individuals should be proactive at this point because, yes, after the market rebounds, or maybe even sooner, the bank is probably going to start collecting on those deficiencies. So one of the things you can do if you're facing foreclosure is work out a negotiation with the bank where they waive that deficiency, or they waive that negative credit reporting.
What if I just give him back the house? I mean, here's your deed in lieu of foreclosure. Take the house. Any thoughts? I mean, well, here you go. You got a foreclosure. They come. They knock. The sheriff comes knocking at my door, and assuming I either hire an attorney or I file a pro se answer, I'm going to argue the case. I'm going to go back and forth. Eventually, I'm going to have to pay the piper, do a loan modification, which of course we'll talk about in a minute, or just get the house back. Why not just forestall the process, end it, and say, here, bank, here's a deed. I don't want to go through a process. Take the house. Here are the keys. I'll give it back to you in good shape. I'll wash the windows, clean the carpets, and here are the keys to the house.
Well, you can certainly do that, but absent an agreement from the bank that they can't pursue the deficiency, you could still be liable. And you also have the issue of your credit, as you know very well, Bill. There have been late payments. They've been reported. You hand that over. You still have the same credit issues.
But who cares about my credit? They've taken my house. I mean, I've lost my house. I'm sleeping in the back seat of my car, or worse, living with my parents. I mean, but why worry about my credit? Why worry about the deficiency? I mean, heck, in 5 or 10 years, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, yes, I might win the lottery, but until then, what gives?
Well, Bill, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And another thing that you need to keep in mind is that if you negotiate the deed in lieu of foreclosure with the bank, you might be able to get something back in return from the bank because you're avoiding the whole process for them. Banks really don't.
I'm saving the money because obviously, as soon as something goes into foreclosure, it's $50,000 to $75,000 that they're going to lose based on all the fees, costs, and everything. And plus, I could actually destroy the home the day before they sell it on the courthouse steps. I can walk through with a 20-pound sledgehammer and destroy the place.
You could destroy the home. You could remove the entire.
It's still
kitchen.
Mine. I could do what I want.
You absolutely can. It's yours until it's sold. You are correct on that. So at this point, you have what we like to call leverage with the bank. You are in a negotiating position. Yes, you can hand over those keys, but rather than hand over the keys and simply walk away, there are things you can negotiate with them. You can negotiate a timeline. In some cases, they will give you what's called cash for keys. They will pay you, so you have some money to relocate.
But why would they pay me? They're taking my house. I mean, they're going to pay me, or just not to destroy the place, I guess.
Well, pretty much. It's a settlement bill, and what's going to happen is that they want that house turned over to them. They don't want to have to go through the foreclosure. They don't want to have to defend the foreclosure because, as I'm sure we're going to talk about, there are certain defenses and there are things they need to prove that they may or may not be able to do.
Okay, well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about that. The sheriff comes to my door. They serve me with papers. I'm scared, but I'm smart enough to go out and hire a lawyer. I call up Lori Barkus, PA, out there in Weston, and I say, listen, come to my rescue. What are you going to do?
Well, first thing we're going to do is you and I are going to sit down and meet. I have a free initial consultation with all of my clients, and we talk about the situation you're in and what your best option is. Sometimes it may simply be that you're going to give this house back. In other situations, it may be that we can modify your loan, that we can keep you in the house. But either way, we need to buy time to do that, because if you don't answer in 20 days, a default is entered against you. And at that point,
what is a default?
A default means that you have not answered and that everything that the bank said in their complaint about the foreclosure is true. You now have no defenses. The action goes forward. That is the first thing we want to prevent. We certainly need to push back this timeline because time is on our side.
Okay, so we answer the suit. I mean, do you have in a 20 days time, do you have enough time to review the initial pleadings? Do you have time to review my mortgage, all the documents that came along with it? I mean, how can you defend a case in 20 days?
Oh, not at all. No, the first thing I do is I file an appearance. So that puts everybody on notice that I am representing you.
And of course, that's a legal notice. So the legal notice itself, you may get an extension of time, but you filed an initial pleading, which essentially stops the clock as far as the default process.
Well, you have to file the motion for extension. The appearance alone will not stop it, but you are correct. We would ask for an extension of time, which is...
How many months do you get there?
Can get at least 30 days and possibly try for a second one. So we can easily buy ourselves 1 or 2 months before we even have to file anything. And we're going to need that time because we're going to need to gather some documents. We're going to need to start putting together our defense, and we're also going to need to start showing the bank a little bit of muscle. We're gonna send them some discovery requests. We're going to make them prove their case.
All right, let's go back to the initial consultation. We're sitting together in a room much the same as this here. I bring my paperwork. I bring my suit. What do we do? What do we talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about what your goals are. I mean, for instance, let's say...
I want to stay in the home 4 years without paying them, Lori, of course. I mean, isn't that the goals of many of the people now that are trying to work this system?
Well, everybody would love to stay in their home and never pay.
Of course, you don't give that advice, I'm sure.
Right. No, I would absolutely never do that. We can extend the process to keep you in your home for a certain period of time. And while that foreclosure is going on, the bank cannot accept money from you.
What happens if they do?
What happens if they do that might be grounds for dismissal.
All right, what happens? I mean, some of the new, they had the Obama administration has this new Making Homes Affordable program where many of the banks now are coming back and saying, look, even though you are in judicial foreclosure, even though we've had pleadings filed against you, we have an attorney coming after you, and in some cases we already have a summary judgment against you basically saying, we win, we just have to set a sale date. They're saying, look, come into this program, we'll put you in and modify your loan. Now, of course, the 3-4 months of the initial process are up because, this program's only like 4 or 5 months old. You've made your 3 payments, but they come back and don't modify your loan. Is that a defense?
That absolutely is.
All right, and how do they go back then? I mean, because I'm curious, because I'm seeing more of this, and this is, like I said, something brand new as of just like the first of the month because the government put out the report saying only 20% of the loans at, say, Chase are being modified under the program, where 0%, I mean real 0%, at several other companies, not a single loan had been modified. So they take them for 3 or 4 months, and all of a sudden they say, look, no, we go back into judicial foreclosure. What happens then?
That's been happening a lot, and again, that's one of the reasons why you need representation and why you need somebody to defend you in this process.
All right, so I hire you. What are you going to do? We sit down for the initial consultation. We have all my paperwork. What do I have to bring with me to the initial consult?
What you're going to bring to the initial consultation is any papers that have been served on you. If this case has gone beyond service and you've been defending yourself for some reason, I want to see everything that's gone into the court file. I want to see all the notices that the bank has given you, any written communication with the bank. I want to see your last statements on your mortgage or your equity line if you have one, or second mortgage if you have one. I want to see where you are in the process. And then when we meet, we're going to talk about your financial situation. We're going to talk about your ability to pay, and we're going to discuss what option would best suit you. But in any event, if we come on board and we're defending the foreclosure, we can keep you in the house at least for a period of time.
All right, and with me today is Lori Barkus, foreclosure defense attorney. Actually, her website, www.foreclosuredefensebroward, of course, implying Broward County here in Fort Lauderdale.com. Lori, your telephone number?
954-349-7988.
Hey, that makes it easy. My guest, once again, Lori Barkus from Lori Barkus, PA. If you're facing foreclosure, want to know and learn more about your rights, give her a call at 954-349-7988. If you have a question today, the number is 888-565-1470. I'm Bill Lewis. Be right back.
This is Terry Kirby. We've all heard enough about the economy and how bad things are. What you're really concerned about is your own personal situation. I know all too well what you're going through. Your bills are out of hand, the endless phone calls, and your credit is getting worse every day. You have no idea what to do. Here's your answer. Do what I did. Call Bill Lewis at Credit Restoration Consultants. 954-581-5050. That's 954-581-5050. My credit was a disaster, but Bill and his staff took time to help me get it all sorted out. They're experts. They know the credit industry, and they'll help you protect your rights. Late payments, judgments, old medical bills, even if you've been a victim of identity theft, CRC can help. The fees are reasonable, and the people are always professional and courteous. Stop doing nothing. Let the experts restore your credit today. Call Bill Lewis at CRC 954-581-5050. That's 954-581-5050. Or just go online to talkaboutcredit.com and tell them that Terry Kirby sent you.
The Coral Springs Craft Guild invites you to the 32nd Annual Holiday Craft Show, Enchanted Elegance, on Friday, October 9th from 5 to 9 p.m. and Saturday, October 10th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at La Quinta Inn in Coral Springs, featuring handcrafted giftware, jewelry, and home decor, all made by local artists. Check out the Fall Boutique for Halloween, Thanksgiving items, the Gift Emporium, Deck the Halls, and the magic of Christmas. Plus, the Craft Guild invites everyone to bring canned food items to be donated to a local food pantry. If you do, you'll receive a free raffle ticket for a handcrafted prize. Don't miss the 32nd Annual Holiday Craft Show, Enchanted Elegance, on Friday, October 9th from 5 to 9 p.m. and Saturday, October 10th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at La Quinta Inn in Coral Springs. For information, go online to www.coralspringscraftguild.com and click on Holiday Show. That's www.coralspringscraftguild.com. This is the Credit Report with Bill Lewis, where your opinion matters. Call us live on the air right now, toll free, 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470. Once again, here's Bill Lewis.
All right, I guess time flies. We're having fun like 33 minutes after the hour here. My name is Bill Lewis with the Credit Report, a daily forum for business, financial news, politics, economic trends, as well as cutting-edge issues. Back once again by popular demand is Lori Barkus. I mean, Lori, you've dealt with, I've known you for several years now. You know I did radio there, but I mean, like, wow, it's like, got to get you on more often now that foreclosure is becoming more and more a hot topic out there.
Well, definitely. I'd be glad to do that, Bill.
You just seem shy sometimes on the radio. All right, your number out there in Weston, 954-349-7988. Your website, www.foreclosuredefensebroward.com. Let's go back to the litigation process. I've hired you. You know, we sat down, we went through the initial consultation of getting you all the paperwork and stuff. Where does it start? What do you do? Well, how do you defend me? I haven't paid in 2 years.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do...
You say "well" an awful lot, don't you? You know, I'm known to say, you know, the comment like, well, at the end of the day. You know, it's like, okay, well, I got to stop that. But
well, right. I'm a native. That's how we talk.
All right, listen, I've hired you. You filed your notice of appearance. What are you going to do to defend me? I haven't paid in 2 years. I mean, the terms and conditions of the loan, Lori, say I have to pay each and every month. I haven't paid in 20 to 24 months. How do you defend that?
Well, the first thing you have to remember is the bank has to prove its case. The bank or the lender, whoever is filing the action. And one of the most common things that people may not know is that the person who has filed against you, that entity, may not have your note. They may not be able to prove that they hold the promissory note that you signed, that you owe the money to them. And if they cannot prove that, then that in and of itself is a defense, because there's nothing that guarantees the person who's actually holding the note won't come after you in the future.
All right, let's say you have let's say Chase. Chase is an assignee of, say, Citibank. Okay. They come along, they're suing you. But they allege that you're not making payments. They allege you haven't done so in, say, a year. Okay, and, you know, that's count one, basically breach of note, you know, not paying. Number two, they argue lost note. You know, we don't have the note. Now, of course, this is Chase collecting on behalf of Citibank, so not only do we not have an assignment attached to the initial complaint, but we also have the bank saying, look, it's a lost note, but we're collecting on behalf of somebody else.
Right. Well, you've got two problems there, because there may be problems with the assignment, and one of the things we're going to ask for is to see that. And one of the things we're finding is that there are a lot of things going on with assignments that are not exactly on the up and up, so to speak. Well, meaning that assignments weren't done in due course as they were supposed to be. There are documents being produced showing notaries that don't measure up, showing that...
You mean like notaries that didn't become notaries until a couple of years after? Because, I mean, I've seen that come up a lot.
Yes,
notaries
after
that
the
don't
assignment.
exist. You know.
Exactly. A notary's is valid for 4 years, and you will see an assignment allegedly back in 2004, and the notary's expiration is 2012. That alone is a...
well, it's a telltale sign that somebody backdated the document.
Right, and when you see backdated documents, you have a condition that's fraud. And when the lender is saying, okay, we do not have the note, but we wanted to have it reinstated, that's an equitable action. And when you ask the court for something in equity, you have to have what are called clean hands. And if you have done something that is fraudulent, your actions are unclean. And all of these things put together are a basis to dismiss a foreclosure.
Well, couldn't they just start all over again? I still owe the money.
Well, they could, but here's the thing. This is the bank who's paying a lot of money for this, who has to pay its attorneys, who is owning property, and they really want this done. So now we've caused an awful lot of trouble for them, and that kind of brings us back to our options, because the bank is pretty much railroading a lot of foreclosures through. Bill, I know you're familiar with the Rocket Docket and things of that nature, but when somebody comes in and defends and makes the bank actually prove their case, well, they're a lot more willing to listen to
work something out, settle the case.
Exactly. All
right, now, but you catch them in fraud, though. Couldn't you go after them and countersue them, or possibly transfer the case to federal court and go after them there?
Well, you could. That's certainly an option. And one of the other things that we do is...
I mean, attorney's fees at this point, once you countersue and go after them, count against you. So it's not your client that's actually having to pay you. It's if you win, the other side has to pay. So isn't it advantageous to transfer to federal court? I mean, in fact, you are a litigator.
It may be in some cases if we have substantial violations. And again, that kind of goes back to what our client is trying to accomplish. Because one of the things we do is we audit the loan documents to see if there are any violations that such as truth in lending that would give us these defenses. And once we see those, we again go back to the objectives of our client. If the client is simply just trying to get out, trying to get a deed in lieu, and just simply trying to move on, then it may not be advantageous to prolong the litigation and go into federal court and try to seek attorney's fees and basically have litigation that's going to take a life of its own. But in some cases, it might be in our best interest to do that. And it certainly would prolong things.
Well, in dealing with these particular matters, obviously you have the cases utilizing, say, my example there, which is a prime example in the state of Florida. Somebody else is suing on behalf of the original owner. They do not have a note. They haven't attached an assignment to the original pleadings. The case moves along. It's very important, I guess, at that time to make sure you're properly represented by counsel, because if you don't know these defenses, are they waived?
They are absolutely waived. If you don't answer, that sheriff comes to your door. You have 20 days to answer. If you do not, these defenses may be waived. What
about if you didn't know about them?
Well,
I mean, you just let it kind of go, and it goes to default, or they get a summary judgment, and then later on you hire an attorney to come back and say, wait a second, look at my file here. How hard is it to get those cases reopened?
It gets more difficult as the process goes along. If there is a default, there may be the opportunity to set it aside. The pleading rules on that are pretty liberal. However, of course, if it's gone to summary judgment, if there's been a foreclosure sale and the property is gone, there's nothing we can do. Depending on where you are in the process, there may or may not be something we can do. But obviously, the earlier that we meet with you, the earlier that we get involved, the better chance it is that we can do something.
Now, do you review these documents yourself, or do you have a forensic analyst that goes over these documents and has like a checklist of all the Truth in Lending Act violations or any possible RESPA violations or other state and federal laws that are applicable?
We work with forensic analysts. We provide a list of documents that we need, and the analyst goes through and gives a detailed account of what violations exist. And
does that mean you countersue, or is that just a defense?
Generally, we raise it as a defense in the state level because, as people may or may not be aware, filing fees have increased to a pretty severe level.
Yeah, it's up to $1,900 now, depending upon the value of your home.
Exactly. It can cost you up to $1,900 simply to bring your counterclaim against the bank. And again, depending on what your interests are, it may or may not be worth it. But we certainly can raise these as defenses, and we can put the bank on the defensive by doing that, because we can file motions to dismiss, and in some cases that has been successful when violations have been uncovered and the court sees that activities that are fraudulent.
Well, let's talk about that, because obviously here in Broward County it's a mishmash of administrative orders that are holding the foreclosure process. I mean, there are many circuits within the state. I mean, obviously the state of Florida, 67 counties, 20 judicial circuits. Broward County is the 17th judicial circuit, all by itself, much the same as Miami-Dade, which is the 11th circuit. But in dealing with Broward, there are no administrative orders that were issued by the chief judge. I mean, Victor Tobin has decided, hey, look, I'm not going to get involved in this, but there's several judges within this circuit itself that have issued their own orders saying that I will not accept a foreclosure unless it has the assignment as well as the actual note attached. Why do some judges do that and some don't?
Well, I think the judges are trying to handle their dockets, Bill, because there are so many foreclosures. The courts themselves are overwhelmed. And some judges are taking a tighter rein on them. Some judges are also a little more sympathetic and are requiring a level of proof before they let the case come in. Again, because there have been cases where the bank has filed, they've gotten service, they've basically taken control of a property in the space of only a couple of months before, without anybody being able to present defenses. And
so in other words, the system in Broward, I guess, could be broken in the sense that if I go to one courtroom, let's say as a pro se litigant or somebody who just ignored the pleadings, in one courtroom I'm going to be defended by the judge because through administrative order he has said that these particular pleadings or initial complaint have to meet this level, this burden of proof, such as the note itself or even the assignment between lenders, whereas across the hall I have no rights whatsoever?
Well, no, it's not.
I mean, if I don't answer, remember now, I'm considering here, Lori, is that I got the complaint, I didn't answer, I just ignored it, I got a default. But I mean, in some courtrooms, the judge is not going to accept or let that go because, wait a second, there's no note, there's no assignment. Whereas across the hall, the judge may not have that same administrative order.
Right. Well, in some courtrooms, the judge will not let the case go to judgment without the bank producing certain information. That is correct. And I think the point that really needs to be stated is that you need to know your judge. And obviously, as somebody going through this process who may or may not be familiar with the court system, you may not be familiar with those judges.
Now, what happens here if they file a case, and throughout the case, okay, we have the lost note theory, and they try to defend that, or there's no assignment, and later on they come back and subsequently file the assignment after the fact, after the case is filed. Thought process is there. I mean, is that still a defendable action?
Well, again, we would have to see what that assignment says.
The dates and times, and for instance. Okay.
Right, the dates and times, the notaries, who signed it, did that person have authority? There are an awful lot of vice presidents working for banks, and there are names that kind of pop up everywhere. They may or may not have had authority. They may not have signed with the correct capacity. You may
How can they get away with that?
Well, because nobody defends these cases. Up to 95% of foreclosures are not defended. People get scared. They say, I owe money. There's nothing I can do. I'm just going to walk away. And they allow all this to happen, and the banks just produce whatever they have.
Now, an individual comes into your office, they want to hire you. I mean, what does it cost? What does it cost to retain you? I mean, obviously you're not a foreclosure defense mill, meaning, of course, you take hundreds if not thousands of cases just to string them along through extensions of time and keep people in their property. You actually defend these particular matters. What does it cost?
Right, and we actually do that, Bill. We work with people on an individual level. You are a client. You're not just a number to us. What we do is we have a flat rate fee. And we have a flat rate fee for our foreclosure actions. We also we do charge a small cost retainer, and there is an actual cost for that forensic audit that we talked about to determine if there are truth in lending violations.
What is the forensic audit? I mean, basically, is that the same per case?
That is.
All right, what is your flat fee? I mean, I come into the office, I get somebody listening right now that says, hey, listen, I'm interested. I have an action, I have an issue right now, but I don't think I can afford to defend this.
My flat fee is $1,500. That covers my time for up to 6 months worth of work.
All right. Saved by the bell, I guess, huh? Background music means we're going into a break. Thanks, Joe Light here. Bill Lewis here at the Credit Report, a daily forum for business, financial news, politics, economic trends, as well as cutting-edge issues. My guest is Lori Barkus from Lori Barkus, PA. If you're facing foreclosure, you want to learn more about your rights, you actually want to have some defense, you can utilize the attorney that has received several referrals, whether they be divorce or foreclosure, here from CRC. All right, her number is 954-349-7988. Her website is www.foreclosuredefensebroward.com, and we are live here at 888-565-1470. You're having fun so far, Lori?
I'm having a great time, Bill. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
I'm Broward Sheriff Al Lamberti. The Internet allows people from all over the world to interact with each other. It can also provide online predators access to communicate with children. Please follow these important safety tips to keep your family safe online.
Keep your computer where adults can monitor online activity. Discuss your concerns about who your children communicate with online. And establish approved Internet time, making sure your kids know what sites they can and cannot visit.
We've all heard enough about the economy and how challenging things are. What you're really concerned about is your own personal situation. Your bills are out of hand, the endless phone calls, and your credit is getting worse every day. You have no idea what to do. Here's the answer. Call Bill Lewis at Credit Restoration Consultants at 954-581-5050. That's 954-581-5050. Bill and his staff will help you get it all sorted out. They're experts. They know the credit industry, and they'll help you protect your rights. Whether you've got late payments, judgments, old medical bills, even if you've been a victim of identity theft, CRC can help. The fees are reasonable, and the people are always professional and courteous. Stop doing nothing. Let the experts restore your credit today. Call Bill Lewis at CRC, 954-581-5050. That's 954-581-5050. Or go online to talkaboutcredit.com. That's talkaboutcredit.com. This is the Credit Report with Bill Lewis, where your opinion matters. Call us live on the air right now, toll free, 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470. Once again, here's Bill Lewis.
All right, I guess time flies when you're having fun. About 3/4 of the way through the show here, Lori Barkus in here, foreclosure defense attorney. Is that like an oxymoron there, foreclosure defense? I mean, how do I defend the foreclosure? I didn't pay them. I mean, obviously, we hire a forensic analyst to go through the documents. We hire somebody to, pick apart the I's, uncross the T's. I mean, does this just buy me time, Lori, or can I actually win this case and get it dismissed and keep the house? I mean, there are some people out there that swear, oh, let us defend your case and we'll keep the house.
Well, no, that is not true. And one of the things we emphasize is realistic expectations, Bill, because we're not going to get you your house that you're going to own without ever having to pay for it again. But there are possible solutions. In some cases, we might be able to get you in a position where you can modify that loan. As we talked about earlier, the lenders are extraordinarily slow in modifying loans, and it's too much to go into in our brief time here today, but they clearly need an incentive to come to the table and try to modify a loan. So
and what are those incentives? I mean, just the defense of the litigation?
Well, yeah, that certainly would be part of it. The fact that they may be facing possible fraud counts if somewhere along the line somebody committed a violation of truth in lending or RESPA or something else.
How do I prove a RESPA violation? I mean, obviously, one of the easiest violations is getting the final documents at the closing table. I don't get my 24 hours to read them. They prepare them. They sit me at the table. They got a gun to my head and say, look, I'm sorry your interest rate went up a couple points and your down payment went from 10 to 20%, but if you don't sign today, you've lost this mortgage.
Well, that would certainly be one of them because you are entitled to a good faith estimate. And there are numerous other ones that, again, our time here is short, so I can't go into all of those, but it is something that we do address along with our foreclosure defense.
All right, in the foreclosure defense, obviously, we get the forensic analyst involved. He comes back and says there's a lot of violations, 4, 5, 6, 10, whatever violations. You go back and defend the case. At that point, are you filing discovery and the company has to provide additional documents in support of what your claims are?
Yes, we do that all along. We believe in aggressive defense, and we don't simply just sit back on a motion for enlargement or something like that and do nothing. We work really hard for our clients.
But how can you do that for $1,500? I mean, basically you're talking about charging a $500 or $600 or $700 cost retainer versus the $1,500. I mean, and is it pretty quick in the defense?
Unfortunately and fortunately, it is not. When it comes to a defense, believe it or not, time is on our side. I know a lot of people are scared. They want this done. It's hanging over their heads in the same way that a lot of people just simply want to stay in their homes. But the thing is, the goal here a lot of times is to buy time. So I can't tell you that it's going to be done within the 6 months of that flat rate fee that I have, and that there may not be another payment.
Okay, so $1,500 will buy me 6 months worth of services in defense.
Exactly.
Okay, so basically if it takes longer than 6 months, we start the fee, which doesn't sound objective there. I mean, in fact, $1,500 for 6 months of service. What happens if you have to go to court 3 or 4 times? I mean, do I have to pay an additional fee?
You do not. We do ask you for a cost retainer that we apply to costs that we have, such as needing a court reporter for hearings, and again we also have that accounting fee. But no, you are paying for our time and our representation and whatever needs to be done in those 6 months. We don't take payments from you on a monthly basis. I know a lot of people do that.
And they file the same extension for time every month.
I hear that's been done, and maybe it helps in certain situations. But we believe in being aggressive with our representation. We also believe in giving you the representation that's tailor-made for your circumstances. That's why we don't take hundreds of cases. We will know your name. You will know ours. you will be working with me. You will be working with people in my office. You will know who they are. You will meet them personally.
All right, and dealing with that, obviously, you get involved in the case. You file your notice of appearance. You file your either motion for extension or enlargement of time to file your initial reply. You get involved here. You file the answers. You file the affirmative pleadings. We're going back and forth in discovery. At what point does the bank throw up their hands and say, hey, I'm willing to work with you?
It really depends. It depends on the lender that we're dealing with. It depends on what's going on. Sometimes the banks just simply say, okay, well, we want to talk about loan mod. Some of them are just overwhelmed, or their attorneys are overwhelmed with so many cases that we just simply don't hear from them. We really don't know. We do everything we can to make sure we're first and foremost on their minds, so to speak, because they're going to be getting a lot of documents from us, and we try not to get lost in the shuffle of however many cases they have. But I really can't guarantee you a time frame. But what I do is I do status updates with all of my clients. I make sure you know what's going on. I notify you. As I always tell people, no news really is good news. So
maybe they've forgotten about me in that big stack of files. Because, I mean, obviously, like in dealing with loan modifications, you get a different person working your file every week.
Exactly. That's why in loan modifications, people can do them themselves if they choose to, but it is such a difficult process. Somebody needs to be very persistent in that process. So
now, loan modifications in your office, if I come in and hire you for foreclosure defense and we subsequently switch to loan modification, is that something you do?
That's actually a separate fee, and we work with people who handle those. So we can certainly direct you to somebody who can work with you and hopefully be successful in your loan modification.
Okay, so in dealing with the loan modification, if you're moving me from foreclosure defense, then obviously I've had some level of success in that particular process and defending or staving off them coming and taking the keys to my house and throwing me out on the curb.
You definitely have. Because of the foreclosure defense, because of whatever it is that we filed in your particular case, you are still in your house. This is not going forward. You are now in a position to negotiate. You now have more time, which you need for the loan modification process, because, Bill, as you mentioned, you're talking to a different person each week, and you're calling and calling and calling. It's a very time-consuming process, so we are able to buy you the time you need to successfully complete that.
In this process, I mean, obviously throughout the first few years of your practice, you did family law, and you subsequently moved into foreclosure defense.
Well, actually, I still do both.
Well, I know you do the family, but I'm saying is you kind of moved into foreclosure defense now, and you are doing, the family here and there. I think we referred to your divorce a couple of weeks ago, but on divorces, I guess people are just not really into these days as much. Tough economic times, it's hard to split up.
Well, I think the times are very tough for people.
Here, honey, you can have the house. I mean, I'm no longer fighting over the house. Here, honey, you can have the house. Matter of fact, I'll quit claim it right now. I mean, how many the divorces you see now over the last couple of years that they no longer fight over the home? They're fighting over who doesn't get the home.
Well, that's pretty much what happens. They're still fighting over the home, but instead of I want the house, it's you take it, no, you take it. That's going on an awful lot.
Yeah, you take it, honey. You want it, you have it. Here are the keys. Here to quit claim. Goodbye. I'll move out by 12 noon tomorrow.
Which doesn't exactly work, especially when both people are on the mortgage, and people need to be aware of that. But again, beyond the scope of our show. But yeah, we are seeing a lot of difficulties with people who may want to go through with divorce but simply cannot afford it right now.
It's interesting indeed. I mean, you talk about foreclosure. How do I not afford a foreclosure defense attorney? I mean, obviously here, it pays to hire somebody. It pays to actually sit with someone, because if anything, you're going to push me through the process, and I might, get another 6, 8, 10 months in dealing with this. Because, obviously, as you are defending me, my case hasn't defaulted. I didn't get a summary judgment of foreclosure or a final judgment of foreclosure where they're kicking me to the curb with the bulk trash. Now I've spent the $1,500. I at least had that other 6 or 8 months. So how can it not be beneficial to hire an attorney?
Well,
whether it be you or somebody else.
I agree with you, Bill. I think in the case of foreclosure, in most cases, you can't afford not to hire somebody. Again, keep in mind that you have to live somewhere and you have to pay rent somewhere if you leave your house. So I understand that coming up with $1,500 or whatever the fee may be seems very scary to people, but keep in mind that you have to pay rent.
Well, some of these individuals that were losing their home are the adjustable rate mortgage that went up. So these individuals should have at least had their monthly mortgage payment before. I mean, if their mortgage was $2,000 a month now, but now it's $4,000 a month, they should have still had the two so they could afford an attorney. I mean, obviously in the $2,000 a month, where did it go?
Exactly. In most cases, if you were paying that $2,000 a month, then
you should still have it.
Right. You do have funds.
All right, Lori. Somebody wants to get in contact with you. I mean, obviously you're out in Weston. How accessible are you? How long does it take to get a return call from you?
We do everything we can, and we are almost always successful in returning calls within 24 hours. You may need to give us a little longer if it's a weekend, although we are generally in on Saturdays. But
I think that's a better time than me, because sometimes I'm just overwhelmed with calls, and it's like so many calls, and then everybody calls on a Friday afternoon. They want quick service, and it's like Monday morning you call them back, and it's like, well, what took you so long? I said, well, you called Friday afternoon. I was already gone for the day. But,
right.
So 24 hours or less, basically, I'll call you back.
Right, generally.
What if they're on a time frame? Just leave a message, say, hey, I have an emergency. My house is being sold tomorrow. I guess by then it's a little late.
Well, if your house is being sold tomorrow, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to help you.
Here's a number for a good bankruptcy attorney. Let's see if we can get your file by 5.
Right, exactly.
That sort of thing. All right, Lori, we're at the end of the show. Once again, your telephone number. How can individuals contact you should they be in need of foreclosure defense here in Broward?
You can reach me at 954-349-7988.
Hey, easy number. And, of course, www.foreclosuredefensebroward.com. Lori Barkus from Lori Barkus, PA. So if you are facing foreclosure, you want to learn more about your rights. You indicated, of course, free consultation.
That's
all?
correct.
Free
yes.
means absolutely free. I don't need a cost retainer. Don't need anything else. Just bring my documents with me. And, of course, I can come out to your office and discuss my individual circumstance or situation.
That is correct. On our foreclosure cases, we do offer a free, no-obligation initial consultation.
All right. That music at the end of the show means we're done for the day. Once again, your phone number.
954-349-7988.
All right. We'll have you on again in the future, Lori. Thanks for coming on, and have a great day.
Thank you, Bo. You too.
The Credit Report with Bill Lewis is a production of Credit Restoration Consultants, located at the Sawgrass Business Plaza, 13790 Northwest 4th Street, Suite 111 in Sunrise, Florida. Credit Restoration Consultants specializes in restoring consumer creditworthiness and identity theft. If you're having credit problems, if your bills are out of hand, or if you just want a credit checkup, call CRC for a free credit consultation. Call now at 954-581-5050. That's 954-581-5050. Or go online to www.talkaboutcredit.com. That's talkaboutcredit.com.
The opinions expressed on this sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.